BDO Unibank recently committed 75 billion pesos, roughly $1.3 billion, to finance two major pumped storage hydropower facilities. It is a landmark infusion of capital designed to anchor the country's transition to renewable energy. This clean corporate headline sits atop significant friction. Regulatory filings and local reports reveal a board war fracturing the Lopez family dynasty, alongside resistance from mountain communities facing the displacement of their farms. While the public is often distracted by these moral dramas, identifying the smart money path requires a different focus. We have to look at the underlying mechanics to determine the actual risk. In the Philippine utility market, separating corporate mechanics from emotional noise is the only way to evaluate risk-adjusted returns. To price these assets correctly, we have to treat the controversy as a set of variables rather than a crusade. The assets absorbing this capital represent 2,000 megawatts of total capacity. This is split between the 600-megawatt Wawa project in Rizal and the 1,400-megawatt Ahunan facility in Pakil. This diagram illustrates the core technology. Pumped storage hydropower uses excess grid energy to pump water uphill to a reservoir. During peak hours, that water is released through turbines to generate power on demand. It functions as a utility-scale water battery. BDO is acting as the lead financier because the Luzon grid is integrating variable renewable energy at an accelerating rate. Solar and wind are highly intermittent, and the grid requires a stabilizer. These hydro facilities provide grid stability services that coal and gas plants cannot easily match. For an investor, the value here is a multi-decade stream of revenue from providing the balance necessary for a renewable-heavy future. The execution of this play involves high corporate governance risk. First Gen Corporation recently acquired a 33% stake in the hydro portfolio amidst a bitter internal dispute among the Lopez family's majority shareholders. The deal contains a change of management control provision. If CEO Pakil Lopez is removed from his leadership roles, Prime Infra has the right to force First Gen to sell back its stake at a 25% discount. BDO reinforced this governance structure by issuing 24.75 billion pesos in standby letters of credit to support the deal. These credit facilities are explicitly conditional on Lopez's continued involvement in the group's leadership. Ousting the CEO could trigger an event of default. Because these letters of credit are secured against the group's broader balance sheet, a default here could theoretically destabilize the entire debt structure of the First Philippine Holdings empire. For retail investors, corporate governance acts as a direct variable affecting the liquidity and safety of the equity. If the leadership is tied to the debt, the board's stability becomes a priceable metric. Operational risks extend to the site itself. The Ahunan project requires a footprint that cuts across the Sierra Madre mountains, threatening the area's biodiversity and the natural springs that serve as the town's drinking water. Residents and religious leaders in Pakil have voiced concerns regarding the potential destruction of local livelihoods and cultural heritage, including the centuries-old St. Peter of Alcantara Parish Church. Evidence of unauthorized tree cutting atop Mount Pingas has already led to a formal investigation by the House Committee on Natural Resources. The project proponent is now facing legislative scrutiny over environmental compliance. A review of the filings reveals a discrepancy. While the environmental impact statement cited a 300-hectare footprint, the actual land conversion application filed by the company covers 466 hectares, leaving 166 hectares of impact unexplained. These grassroots conflicts translate into tangible operational delays and legal hurdles. These are not just moral debates. They are costs that must be priced into any long-term valuation of the projects. Navigating this market requires an analytical focus that strips away emotional baggage. When boardroom feuds and environmental protests are viewed as raw data points, they become part of a risk assessment equation. We focus on tracking the actual cash flow and risk profiles of BDO, First Gen, and Prime Infra. By monitoring the liquidity requirements and the specific covenants of their debt, we can identify market discrepancies. The central trade mechanics involve how these hydro plants will suppress WESM spot prices and whether the Lopez feud actually threatens the group's wider debt structure. A disciplined trade prioritizes the inevitable market reaction over the ethical debate. The goal is to move when the capital cascade hits the ground. The market exclusively prioritizes liquidity and the stability of the underlying cash flows. Subscribe for more data-first breakdowns of the Philippine market as this transition continues. Are you investing in these hydro projects for the long term, or does the corporate controversy keep you on the sidelines? Comment below. Understanding the mechanics behind the capital is the only way to navigate a market.